Sarah Bedford is with the Washington Examiner. She joins me now. Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you as always. Sarah, I have read this morning's news that there is a, quote, immigration deal imminent between Senate Democrats, the White House, and Senate Republicans. I've been doing this show for 23 years, and we've had 4 or 5 big immigration deals come out of the Senate GOP, each one of which cratered as soon as it was unveiled because they never got outside of the Beltway. Do you think they're going to avoid that this time?
No, it does not appear so. And I think the big reason is that the parole powers that the Biden administration has been using to allow hundreds of thousands of people into the country without having to follow any of the regular, asylum processes, which are already being abused to let people in. That seems to be something that the Biden administration doesn't want senators to touch. So you can throw money at the problem. You can put all these rules on paper about tightening the asylum process. But if you're going to leave Joe Biden's parole powers intact, then it is sort of a toothless deal. And that's why I think there's a lot of conservatives that are skeptical that James Lankford and the other Senate negotiators are going to produce anything meaningful.
Well, I trust Senator Lankford, but a momentum develops inside the Beltway where they don't actually talk to people. And I actually read these rules. Like John Kyle was on one of these deals. Marco Rubio was on one of these deals. These are smart people like Jim Lankford and Tom Tillis, but they never ask anybody. And then they get run over and they look around like Wile E. Coyote wondering what happened to me.
Right. I mean, the reality is that, you have a president who's not really interested in stopping the flow of migrants coming over the southern border and isn't really going to concede anything that will have a meaningful impact, really. And you have a House also that is really skeptical of the aid to Ukraine, doesn't want to have to vote for aid to Ukraine, is possibly even rooting for this deal not to materialize. And Mike Johnson has sent all of the House lawmakers home for Christmas, not interested in waiting around for this bill because I think there's just really not an appetite among House Republicans to pass some watered down immigration deal and Ukraine funding of any kind.
Now, Sarah, I want to get an update on Hunter Biden. You're my only source for Hunter Biden news because I'm just not interested in Hunter Biden. I'm just not because the guy's an addict and you can't believe a word he says. But the world is interested in Hunter Biden. So where are we?
Well, right now, the House is moving forward on the process to start a contempt of Congress vote for Hunter Biden, which is going to put the Justice Department in a pretty awkward position because it aggressively prosecuted contempt of Congress charges against Trump associates who were held in contempt of Congress for flouting January 6th congressional subpoenas. So, now there will be this sort of double standard argument that you're hearing being made all across the board in connection to Hunter Biden. And the House has voted this week to formalize the impeachment inquiry, which takes away the main argument that the White House and the Biden administration have used to not cooperate with the congressional investigation. They kept saying, well, it's not a formal impeachment inquiry, so you don't actually have these extra powers. We don't have to comply with these subpoenas. Well, that's really been their only argument about not complying, and that's been neutralized by this vote.
Now, I believe that Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro were both prosecuted on contempt of Congress charges. Am I right about that?
Yes, that's right. I mean, Steve Bannon is fighting right now to stay out of jail with his conviction.
So if you blow off the Congress and they send you a subpoena and you blow it off, the predicate from this Department of Justice, this administration, is that you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, correct?
That's right. And so that's why the Justice Department is in a weird position. Now, I think Hunter Biden's lawyer pulled a sort of smart move here by offering Hunter Biden to testify publicly, which, I don't think was ever actually a genuine offer. But by doing so, the Justice Department might be able to say, well, it's not really an apples to apples comparison with Steve Bannon because Hunter Biden offered to testify publicly. But the reality is he defied a congressional subpoena and did not appear for a deposition. So it is an apples to apples comparison.
It's one rule of law. And I want the same rule applied to everybody, whether it's former President Trump or President Biden and their documents in the garage or Mar-a-Lago, respectively, or if it's Hunter Biden and Peter Navarro. It should be one rule. But I just don't think this Department of Justice can course correct in time. Any indication that from the Department of Justice, that they're taking the Hunter Biden contempt of Congress seriously?
Not yet. They haven't really had to. And I think that a lot of Democrats and defenders of the Biden DOJ will say, oh, look, he's facing these tax charges in California 5 years after the fact. But nonetheless, he's facing these tax charges, the gun charges. It hasn't enough been done. The DOJ has gone after him. It's not a double standard, but if the DOJ fails to take up that contempt of Congress referral, that will be a blatant double standard.
Okay, quick question, Sarah. I think the odds of Hunter Biden getting a pardon are 100%. 100% after the election, no matter how it turns out. What do you think?
I think that's a pretty good prediction, especially because they basically have him dead to rights. If you read that indictment, it's not something that he's going to be able to effectively defend against in court. And, he's a dad. He's going to want to keep his son out of jail.
Yep. And by the way, no one has asked the president yet if he'll rule that out. No one in the White House press corps has asked Karine Jean-Pierre or the president, will you rule out pardoning your son? I don't know why. They just haven't. If Sarah Bedford gets close to the president, I'm sure she will. Sarah, Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining me.